Hey everybody, welcome to the Weekday here. I'm Andy.
Hey, I'm Mike.
That was Mike's cool guy voice. Listen, we were just debating which episode this actually is, and this is episode 10 of the Weekday. I'm going to be completely honest with you, whoever's watching, whoever's listening right now. We are a little tired. It's been a long day.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a very long day. But before that, it was a long evening last night. Mike, can you tell us why it was a long evening last night?
Well, just
Putting kids to bed.
I put the kids to bed, gotta busted out my, romantic novel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A Danielle Steele for you.
Yeah, it's just a really great, very moving.
Okay, but seriously, get to the good part.
Oh, and then the Lightning won the Stanley Cup last night.
The Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup. If we could have the foghorn thing, I'll add it in post later.
Okay, that's good.
There it is. It's going to be a party on this podcast. Yes, the Tampa Bay Lightning defeated the Dallas Stars in 6 games.
Yeah.
It was amazing to watch. We were literally talking about it this morning. This is not a sports podcast, so if you are, that's a shout out to Austin Spencer figuring it out. Another amazing Bay Hope TV.
podcast.
Yeah, not a sports podcast. Bay Hope branded podcast. But we were talking about it this morning, and it was some of the best hockey we've ever seen in our entire lives. Like the way the Lightning were playing, the way they were flying around the ice. Both Mike and I grew up playing hockey. We played hockey for a lot of years. Our parents invested a lot of time. Our sister invested a lot of time at a hockey rink, and so we feel like we know the game pretty well. That's some of the best hockey I've ever witnessed.
Well, it's really cool. I told my son this morning, excuse me, and he obviously didn't stay up until 11:30 or whatever to watch the end of it.
Mine did.
Or 11. Well, yeah, he's a
my
teenager.
16-year-old. Yeah, the 10-year-old was
years
in
older.
bed.
Yeah. But I just told him, I was like,
Ooh,
man,
that tea's hot.
some people go their entire life without seeing their team win.
Yes.
And it's like, this is really special, man. And he's, for as much as a 6-year-old can, comprehend that, like, he was very excited and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, like, incredible stuff. I mean, and really, like, we've been following the Lightning for a really long time. You and I, actually, when they won the Stanley Cup back in 2004, got to go to the parade,
which is awesome,
that they did in downtown Tampa, and see, the Stanley Cup pass by, and just a really cool thing to be brought back to Tampa Bay. And what's funny too is, and just thinking about this now, but in 2004, when the Lightning won, they won it in a really weird year.
A strike-shortened season.
Yeah, because then they went into a strike. No, it wasn't. The whole season was canceled.
Yeah.
It wasn't even strike-shortened.
Was it after?
Yeah.
It was the year after.
The year after. So
oh, man.
They were technically Stanley Cup champions for 2 straight years.
Go Lightning. 2 cups in 3 years or something like
exactly.
that.
So, but yeah, and winning it the way that they did in the bubble and all that kind of stuff. And it was a weird thing to see. It's just another thing that COVID is not necessarily ruining, but it reminds you again and again and again that things are so different. But to see them skate around the ice with the cup in their hands and, like, nobody around, it's just so weird.
I mean, everyone was, like, happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was no energy.
Well, then to see them FaceTiming their families and everything with the cup and, like, oh, look at me.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it was incredible. So, if you're a fan of the Bolts, go ahead and leave us in the comment just one of those lightning bolt emojis.
Yeah.
So we know that you're there.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're a fan of the Stars, sorry.
Yeah.
I got one of those comments on my Instagram
from
somebody that is a good friend of ours in Atlanta, and they were actually in Dallas last night watching the game with a bunch of Stars fans.
Sorry.
And they were wearing Stars jerseys and stuff. So sorry, Dan. I actually know you're watching this, so sorry, Dan. But hey, speaking of COVID kind of ruining things, and not really ruining things,
disrupting things.
Yeah, it's good.
I like that.
That's a hot button term.
Hot.
I don't know if you knew this, but here at Bay Hope Church, we didn't meet in person for something like 6 months.
Close to at 6.
Yeah,
right at 6 months.
I think almost to the day, because it was March 13th.
Yeah,
is the last Sunday or the first Sunday we didn't meet?
Oh, I can't. No, because I think it was March 7th. We didn't. So March 14th maybe was like that first.
Okay, yeah. So
14th
March 7th to September 13th.
Yeah, basically.
We did not have any physical services on this campus, and we are at the Lakeshore, Maine broadcast campus of Bay Hope Church, and it was a weird 6 months. And we've talked about that on this podcast before.
Yeah.
We've kind of hashed through some of the things that we saw happening, the good things. But We wanted to talk today a little bit about the actual regathering, the process that actually had to go into it. Because little known fact, it's not actually just like you can open the doors and just say, "Hey, everybody,
Right.
come on back in." Like there are so many meetings and so many things that have to go into it up front, and then you got to make sure we're playing by CDC rules, and at the same time we got to make sure that we're not harming anybody and not putting anybody in harm's way and not
Yeah.
all those things. And so there's a lot of stuff that leads up to that day. And now that we're kind of open, we're starting to get a little. I feel we're 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in now,
Yeah.
and I feel like we're back into the swing of things a little bit.
Yeah.
But Mike, let me guess. We were talking about this earlier, and I wanted to save it for this. But first of all, how has it been having people back in the building worshiping with you
Yeah.
physically?
Right.
How's that been?
I mean, it does. It feels great.
That was his Tony the Tiger impression.
Great.
Do we have to pay for copyright stuff now?
No, now we do.
Okay. If you do it 3 times on a podcast, you gotta pay.
That's not what it is. No, yes, it was obviously it's having people in a room is much better to. It's much better to play music in front of other people and with other people than to not do that.
Yeah.
And especially when you and I both know that that's what we've been. If we play music, it's most of the time in
With
front
people.
of and with other people.
Yeah.
So, like obviously it feels way more natural and normal to do that. A little weird looking out and just seeing masks.
Sure.
And I'm sure it's very strange for the people in the seats, having to wear masks and sing into your mask and all that kind of stuff. And like, I know it's really hard, it becomes this really strange, I mean, it's a physical barrier. It's like, it's this tiny little bit of cloth or whatever, but it does feel like there is some sort of barrier there. And, it's just something, I think it's just cause it's new for everybody. It's a new thing. It's a different thing. Yeah, I mean, but it is great to physically see people.
Yeah. And so from your side, what has the reception from worship team been, kind of tech team? How's everyone kind of pulled together around this? How have they felt about it?
It's super interesting. And maybe it's just me. I don't know how much it's changed. I don't know how much, I do think, yes, some things have changed. And I think that we're going to talk about that here in a minute between online and physical and all that kind of stuff.
Don't look ahead.
But I among the team, I mean, what's so cool about the worship team here is that when we had to make the change to only go online, we didn't really have to say anything about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to really implore them. It's like, guys, we have to really connect with the people on the screen. And I know it's, maybe we mentioned a little bit about how it's kind of weird. Or
there
whatever.
were standard operating procedures. We need to start going hey, make sure you look at this camera and make sure that stuff happens.
But we never had to fully address what's happening just because everyone understood innately that we were still trying to connect other people to Jesus, even if it was through a camera lens. And so, and then, which I feel like is the harder thing to do. So then when people show up, it's like, oh, cool. I can just, we can just keep on doing what we were doing. To a certain extent, obviously I think that if we were to really dive, things are different with people in the room and all that kind of stuff, but, it was definitely better. It's definitely a better thing to have people in the room.
Yeah. Have you heard any feedback from people that have actually been in the room in that instance, outside of your wife and sort of people just everyday Bay Hope congregant? Have you heard anything back?
I think it's interesting. No, because church, it almost feels like us regathering is half of the puzzle, and because really. The thing that people really like and look forward to, hanging out with other people in the lobby, seeing the people,
coffee, the kids stuff.
We're not allowed to do that stuff yet,
just
because of COVID regulations and all that kind of stuff, trying to be safe. So I think we're it's 50% of what it should be right now. And even just the interaction between, I mean, I've heard from people oh, it's wonderful to be back for the most part, but nothing crazy inflammatory against it or, super outrageously enthusiastic for it. Just kind of, exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah. So great. We physically regather. Again, I feel like we do this a lot. We pull back the curtain a little bit on the church world.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, if you didn't know what happened behind the scenes, then you never would know.
Right.
But we've only really seen maybe 20 to 30% of our people come back. I don't actually know the exact number.
Oh, I thought it was closer to like 50%.
Is it really?
Yeah, I
In
think
the
so.
room at the time, at each time?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, that's good then.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part. But okay, let's say even 50%. We still have close to 3,000, maybe 3,500 people online
Yeah.
worshiping with us every single week. So how have you, as the director of worship here,
Yeah.
how have you managed that? Because that's a tension that we
Right.
need to manage now, because we still have half of our congregation online and half
Right.
of our congregation in person. So
Yeah.
what have you been doing to kind of work with that?
Yeah. Well, I do think, I mean, like we're trying to shorten services.
Mhm.
So like I think that's that's partially because like, we want to get in and change, the rows that people can sit in and
Mhm.
clean and all that kind of stuff, in the high touched areas or whatever. But like I also do think it's a response to the thousands of people all over the world that are showing up for Sunday morning worship services, and even throughout the week. The on-demand stuff after the Sunday happens, and so you do have to factor that in when you're planning stuff, when you're thinking about stuff, when you speak. Like how much am I going to look at the camera
Hmm.
and actually speak directly to the people online? How much am I going to speak to the people in the room? Like it starts to bring up a lot of those questions of, like, are the people in the room right now, like they get an in-person experience, but like, even in what you just said, they might be like 10% of the amount of people that are online.
Yeah.
And that is mind-boggling
Mhm.
and mind-blowing, because that is not a thought I had ever thought until, that's not a thought I could, yeah, I had ever thought until, now, like 6 months ago, that thought would have never crossed my mind.
Right.
Everything that we were developing was for the people in person.
Mhm.
And then online it was almost like they were able to peer in through a window at it.
Right.
And now, because of COVID and everything, and because we've realized that like there is this shift that's happening digitally, like we are really trying to live into the both and world. And, a lot of people are coining it the physical and digital. But like understanding that thousands of people are watching online.
Right.
And only hundreds of people are in the room.
Right.
And so what I do think the past 6 months has done is sort of accelerated this change that we were going to come to that conclusion anyway,
Mhm.
within the next probably year and a half, 2 years,
Mhm.
3 years, whatever. But over the past 6 months, it's really accelerated that mindset in
Mhm.
those thoughts. So it's super interesting. I do think obviously in person you get a different experience. Like we're never going to be able to have the online experience be what the in-person experience is. And then vice versa, like the people in the room, like it's just, they're two different ways of interacting with something.
Right.
And yes, there's ways that how we can create different things to make sure that both online and in person have like great experiences.
Mhm.
But like, again, you shop at a store online. It's a different experience than me going through I shop Home Depot online, but then I walk through Home Depot and it's a different experience.
Right.
I might end up with the same thing, but the experience of me getting there is very different.
Right.
And so, but they're both Home Depot.
Right.
And so, how do we make both of those experience not just acceptable but exceptional on both ends?
Well, and I don't think we need to. So the myth, and Mike kind of said it earlier when he said, we were trying to, online was technically kind of looking through a window into what was happening physically in the room.
Right.
And then COVID happened and everything, and I had to make a switch. And Mike's absolutely right. Like we were having those conversations of how do we transition? How do we make, how do we make it?
It's the reason you came on
Exactly,
staff was to help accelerate that discussion, because before you came on staff last March of 2019 or April 2019, June,
yeah.
The reason that like you were brought on staff was because we were already having those discussions.
Right.
And it's like, for someone to push this ball forward, or for this church, we need someone in this position, because we started to understand and started to really take metrics like, oh no, like there's so many people online. And we had never, like, I honestly, it wasn't until probably the summer of 2018 that we had never actually counted people online.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember Zach put out a question for people like, how many people are watching with you? And then it started coming back like 5 people, 4 people, 6 people, 2 people. And like the majority of people were watching with more than just one person. Right. It's like, oh no, what?
What are we doing?
Yeah, like, which is a wonderful problem to have.
Sure.
But then it's just like, it's this like heavy dose of reality of like, oh my gosh, like we're so much more of an online church than we thought we were, you know? And we'd been pushing online church for 10 years, or online services, I guess, for 10 years. But to make this shift into like both a digital and physical church, you know, it's just been really accelerated over the past 6 months.
Yeah. And I think the point of all of that we both take from it, and that the rest of our staff has really taken from it, is that we don't need to make our physical be exactly the same as our online.
Yeah.
Like Mike's right. They're never going to be the same.
Right.
And that's just live in a physical space versus a bunch of ones and zeros, which is what digital world is. However, that doesn't mean that we can't do the best that we can to make them do that. So I guess
even at the same time.
At the same time, yes. And so I guess the question is for you, Mr. Creative, how in the music world, how are you seeing that translate in just what we're doing from the platform here?
Yeah.
Like what is just like, give me 2 practical steps that you guys are doing. Something that everybody watching and everybody listening would have seen over the last couple of weeks or months, really.
Right.
And I can name one off the bat if you want me to
what?
go. It's you looking at the camera and saying, good morning.
Yeah.
Like that, for me, because so again, behind the curtain, we're in a studio right now. Go figure. There's lights and there's cameras and, you know, there's microphones and stuff. But behind this camera, there's an entire station of broadcast equipment. There's TVs and switchers and audio, and then there's an entire room where all the audio gets mixed that happens out in the main room and all these other things. It's so cool. This room is so versatile. But I sit at that switching station, and so technically I'm nowhere even close to the room. I'm nowhere even close to what's happening on a Sunday morning. And so I'm connecting just like the rest of you are. I'm connecting through a screen, usually through, I've got probably 8 windows open, 8 different videos going at the same time. No kidding, no lie.
It looks like Tom Cruise in Minority Report.
Yeah, I'm just like drawing in the air, and like I'm alt-tabbing and making sure, and, you know, talking and praying and doing, it's great. But I'm seeing all of this just like that. And so I have the same thing that you have. I have that same thing of, I feel that disconnection when it feels like people are talking around me. Does that make sense? And so a lot of churches are really good at talking around the online area, just doing what they're doing, talking to the people in the room and not worrying about it. Mike, and particularly his team, he's been coaching his team to actually look at the camera. And even if you're not focused on that camera 1,000% of the time, making sure you're drawing the life out of that you are talking to that camera as if it were a person.
Yeah.
Because it is. Because there's people on the other side of that, acknowledging that there's people there, and then continuing on with the rest of the room.
Right.
That is a brilliant practical step that you guys have been putting. I appreciate that.
Sure.
It makes it a whole lot easier for everybody in the online world to actually connect with you guys and connect with the music and connect, even if they're not standing and singing, they're letting that music be in them because you spoke to them.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that we've been doing too, well, thank you for that too.
You want me to pat you on the back?
No, I'm good.
No.
Your words were enough.
I've heard that before.
I think we've been shortening sets for a reason. You know, like I said before too, like there's an attention span thing that happens. I think that when you get people in the room, you know, you have them there for an hour or whatever. And now, granted, we don't know. We don't have hard data on how much they are actually participating into the service, how much they're engaging, how much they're actually tied in when they're sitting in the room.
I was going to say, I have it online.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So like when we made the shift to only digital online, like we finally have hard data on how much people are engaging, how long people are watching. And, you know, like I personally think that none of us, like if we're going to sit and watch something, it can't be longer than like 20 minutes.
Average watch time for us was 19 minutes.
Yeah. And so, which I didn't even know. That was just my gut feeling. But I really do think that the half-hour TV show nailed this a long time ago. You know, back in the 50s and 60s and stuff. Like there's something about, and you know, half-hour TV show is really only 22 minutes of content. So like there's something about that 18 to 22 minutes that really can get people. And so, you know, I think our attention spans are actually lessening. And like, I don't think that that's a shock to anybody. And even my attention span, I feel like, is...
I stopped listening to you like 30 seconds ago. Hey guys, welcome to the weekday.
Yeah. So, but like I, when we're pushing these things to people in their home, whether they're watching at home or, on their phone or whatever, I mean, they are literally one click away from Facebook and Instagram, like the most addictive, like, attention getting things humans have ever created.
Yep.
And so, like what do we do about that? And so, that's a really long way for me to explain that, like, we've basically cut our sets probably by one song.
That's great.
And it's just, it's hard. It's just, it's easy. And to what we've been finding too, with like a lot of, like, we did a lot of shorter music videos and we saw the engagement just like go through the roof, because they're like shorter. And that one weekend, when we were, we had to be quarantined because there was, somebody on staff with COVID and all that kind of stuff.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was the only one here in the building.
Yeah.
Actually, again.
And so we did like a clip show of like some of the music videos we created.
Yeah.
And I got so many stupid texts. I was like, man, worship was so good this morning. And it's like, first of all, these videos have been out for months.
Where you been?
Secondly, it kind of hurts. Like, I mean, thank you, but like that kind of hurts.
Pride goes before the fall, Mike.
But like, I do think that there's something to like this. Like, they're at home, and so they're just gonna watch it. Like, and how they're engaging is actually by giving their intention to it,
right,
and letting it hit them.
Right.
Being humble enough to say, or for us as content creators, basically at that moment, being humble enough to be like, the best that we can get from you is that you would actually watch this. And so like really, trying to leverage that as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree. We have so much more on this topic, and it's going to be really interesting over the next couple of weeks. We're only 3 weeks into this reopening experiment. Numbers and cases in the state of Florida have been kind of low.
They've leveled out.
Yeah, and in a weird way.
I mean, what's cool about I just read an article about how, like, everyone was really worried about kids going back to school.
Yeah,
I was too. But because they're at school in mass all day, like cases like are actually, like, my son in the over a month he's been at his school, like they've had one case.
Yeah,
and like that's great.
Yeah, high school's been a little different for our kids.
Yeah.
But
they're older.
And Grace, she's our 14-year-old. She actually had a case that was, so they do like a seating pattern now for everybody in the class. And in her English class, it was 2 rows over. Somebody got COVID. And so the box around that person, basically it's a 6-foot box.
Yeah.
So all 9 people around that had to be quarantined. She was the 10th person. So she would have had to have been quarantined too. But so far, so good there.
Yeah.
But we're into
times
this.
we live in.
Yeah, I know. And we're like, I'm constantly pulling up the trackers on the internet, looking at them and all this. So that's just kind of where we're at. And as a church, we're doing the same thing. We want to make sure that everybody here, everybody on our West Chase campus, everybody, hopefully when the harbor reopens, is safe. And until then, or not even in place of then, but we also want to provide excellence in our online services. And so we are so thankful for all of you, Bay Hopers, for being part of this. And if you don't go to Bay Hope, check us out, bayhope.tv. We would love to have you as part of our community here.
Yeah.
And honestly, we want to hear from you guys in terms of all of this. We want to hear what scares you about physical regathering. And we want to hear what we can do to kind of help you, but also the things that you've liked if you have been back on campus with us. We really, really want to hear about that. We're going to wrap up right now. It's been so great getting to spend time with you. We love you, and we are so honored that we get to do this here with you each and every week.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
See you later.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Bay Hope TV. Be sure to like and share these videos with your friends, as it really does help this channel out. And be sure to subscribe for more Bay Hope TV content. As always, thanks for watching.